The Love, Life, and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hi, welcome to episode, 74. In this episode, I'm going to be taking you on a review of the winter season, and I'm going to take you through the process that I use with my clients. I think it can be very powerful to do a high level review of the season you've just come out of before you head into the new season. So for this seasonal change, we're talking about the end of the winter season if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, of course, it will be opposite. So just translate accordingly. But I think most of my audience is in the Northern Hemisphere. So I will address you. Please forgive me if you're in Australia. So there's some things to think about with your long-term goals, like changes with your weight and your habits around food, where a seasonal review can be really helpful. As far as the podcast goes, we can go over some of the episodes that we've covered this winter season. The first one was episode 69 and culminating with this episode 74. So I talked to you about setting integrative weight goals for 2025 that take into account your body composition using a smart scale and smart technology so that you can have more data-driven information about what it is that we're measuring as far as our weight goes, right? And I talked to you in depth about how important it is to get on a smart scale like an InBody. So if you've done that, this is a great time in the next 2 weeks before the close of March 2025 for you to get back on that InBody and see any changes that have happened with your fat mass in pounds and your skeletal muscle mass in pounds as well. So I'm just kind of seeding this for you before we talk about the review. Episode 70, we talked really in depth about why sleep matters with your weight and how to optimize it. Hopefully you have taken some of those suggestions and, experimented with how to slightly optimize your sleep if you feel like it needs optimization. And, when you review your data from January through the end of March here, do you notice on your habit tracker that when you get better sleep, perhaps maybe the less often you're overeating? Because we know that lack of adequate sleep will increase stress hormones, which is cortisol, and that will increase your hunger and cravings as well. So this is a great place for you to kind of really take an overview of like where you had good progress toward your goals and what was it in the past 3 months that maybe was going on in your life that stands out to you in terms of like obstacles. In episode 71, we talked about if you're feeling really trapped by food planning and the specific things you can do instead, perhaps you were experimenting with that. Now is the time to look at the results that you got if you did play with a variable like planning and instead you're just doing food logging. Take a look and see, is it giving you better results in terms of how you feel about your decisions ahead of time? Does it make a difference for you? If it's culminating in lack of results for you, whereas food planning, although maybe you didn't like it so much, did help you, that's good to know too. Episode 72, how to build, unbreakable movement habits. That was about, setting habitual practices in terms of, practical things you can do and mindset. Many of us start off in the winter season with lots of aspirational goals toward movement. But I know for many of you, this can be difficult in a cold winter season because, we're interrupted by, terrible weather, ice, snow, things like that. And we do have to make some adaptations. So when we look at your seasonal review in just a few minutes here, keep that in mind. Don't be discouraged, right? Just know as we move into the spring season, the daylight is getting longer than the nighttime hours. You're going to have more sunlight and probably, if you're in the northern hemisphere, warmer temperatures that allow you to get outside more often. And for many of my clients and myself, I want my movement goals to slightly shift as I move into the new season to take into consideration the temperature and, climate that I'm living in. Okay. Episode 73 was a deep dive into how chronic stress, cortisol, and sugar consumption negatively affect your weight loss. So that was a deep dive into a bit of the nutritional science of how your body works. And hopefully, if you listen to that, it gave you a bigger insight as to what actually is happening under the hood of your body, potentially, right? Like we don't know for sure, but hopefully it gave you some insight as to some variables with how you manage stress, your stress hormone release, and the types of food that you are eating and how that can affect your ability to lose fat if that is your goal. So again, these are things that I want you applying into how you create goals, and from those goals, identify actions in an open-minded, experimental way to try to get results that you haven't yet been able to get. This is where I think goal setting is really amazing because it's less about do you get it right or wrong? Not restrictive binary way of thinking about things. And instead, taking a really out of the box beginner mind perspective to what we're trying to do here in terms of your habits, your systems, and your practices that are bringing you closer and closer to the food lifestyle and habits that you want to have around food that will take your weight, hopefully, in the direction that you want it to go in, and your body composition in the direction it wants to go in. And that can be an extremely gratifying and exciting experiment of N equals 1, right? We're our own guinea pigs in this experiment. So, okay. And that brings us to today's episode, which is the review of winter and the plan for spring. So before I go into that, I'm going to ask you to grab a pen and paper, something to write with, can be digital or physical paper. And I'm going to be giving you some questions. You're going to want, I'm not going to pause, right, for you to write it all down. So you have to pause the podcast and then just restart it as you catch up writing things down. Now, if you work with me, you get all these things, all these resources. But, for those of you who, for whatever reason, aren't working with me, I want to give you some of the tools that you can get some of these good tools in your tool belt and use them to help you go where you want to go. Okay, so while you're getting that, let me just make a really fun and exciting announcement. If you're on my email list, you've already heard, I am getting ready to release a planner, a comprehensive planner. It's a digital planner. And what this is it's a system, it's a comprehensive system for how to change your habits and your weight around food and your weight, your body composition as well. For many of you, no matter who you're listening to in terms of the health, wellness, or weight loss space, or weight maintenance space, or body conditioning space, there's no shortage of information. And the truth is, the way that I do things is just one of many ways that you can use to do things. And there's no shortage of different ways to go about creating the change that you want to change. But the problem comes in when there's no system to manage all the information and then apply it day to day. To change our lifestyle around food and our habits around food, we need to come to a system that helps us make small changes on the day-to-day basis. And what better way to do that but by using a comprehensive planner? So, of course, it is March, the latter end of March right now. And it's not a great time to release a planner, but nonetheless, the phase one of it is going to be coming out here shortly. Details to follow very soon. In order for you to be notified when the planner is ready, please sign up for my email list. All of those notifications will go out to my email list first. To join the email list, you can listen to the end of the podcast, or you can just go to my website, which is hbeardsley.com/subscribe, and you'll get the link and the notification for how to buy the planner. So this is how it's going to work. The version one of the planner is going to be just the first 3 months, like May, June, and July. And this is going to be a great way for you to kind of dip your toe into what the planner feels like. You'll get all of the worksheets and theory of how I teach weight loss and those specific dates from May until July. Then come August, my academic year planner will be released. That will take you from August of 2025 to July of 2026. Many of you I know like to feel like the year is starting over when school goes back in August. So many of you do great with a academic year planner. For those of you who like to start at the new year, I'll also be coming out with a new year to new year version of the planner toward the end of 2025. Okay, so that's the really exciting news. I'm recording this in the very beginning of February, and I'm just working with my designer to get this off the ground for you. And that's what it looks like right now. So details to come, and hopefully we'll get it to you by May 1. So stay tuned for that. It's very exciting for me. All right, on to planning. Okay, you've got your pen and paper. So here's the first directions. To stay focused on your long-term goals and keep making progress, the recommendation is to pause at the start of each season. So this is ahead of the first of the month of the new season. Okay, so this is why we're doing this mid to late March, and the new season will sort of start at the end of March, April, May, and end at the summer solstice of, it's usually like June 21st or 22nd. So springtime. We're going to note what's been working and what's not been working. This process is going to positively reinforce your commitment by doing it. It's a chance for you to psychologically start fresh. And this is also a reminder to you to fall in love with the process and be interested in doing this work rather than what we've been conditioned to do, which is to chase outcomes with like all or nothing thinking. So, for example, what I mean by that is like realizing, oh, I set a goal to lose 25 pounds by the end of March. And you notice you're at like 10 pounds mid-March. All or nothing thinking says you failed in your goal, which is just, it's such a shame and a misuse of your beautiful brain. Because obviously some things are working, right? But not everything has been tuned up or leveled up in a way to get you those kinds of results that you were looking for. Or maybe you were just unrealistic in your expectation of what could happen. So here's what I want you to do. When you are reviewing your goals, I want you to assume that the you who sets goals really doesn't know. All you're ever doing is guessing. You're not demanding compliance with some idea. You're looking at realistically, given the variables that you have under your control, what is possible. That keeps us in a emotion of curiosity, interest, and beginner mind, rather than a dictatorial edict that I must do this or that, right? One version, you are the first one to sign up for this new experiment, for this new season. In the latter situation, you're dragging yourself along by your collar, and it doesn't feel good. So don't do this if this doesn't feel good. If you can't get your mindset right on this, where you're really interested to see and look at your data, like what was working, what wasn't, and how can I level those things up? What else can I try this season? Then this really isn't for you. Okay. Okay. So here's the first section. You're going to review last season. Think back to about 12 weeks ago in your memory. This was the very end of December, like right after the 18th of December. You know, we're thinking about the holidays. What was going on from the December holidays, New Year, January, February, and so far in March? Open up your journal and review your calendar. Okay, so look at your journal entries, flip through them from the end of December, flip through your calendar from the end of December to today, whenever you're listening to this. Go back 12 weeks. Remind yourself what was happening. Remind yourself of your goals. If you did this review with me at the end of last season, pull it out, look at it, and think about the actions you had decided you were going to take to get you where you wanted to go. And I want you to take a full sheet of paper, or at least half, to write your observations. You can bullet it by month. You can bullet it by event that happened. Look at your weigh-in numbers. Note any observations. You can stop the podcast here and come back when you're done with your review. Okay. Now that you've taken a trip down memory lane over the last 12 weeks or so, step 2 is to synthesize the data. So you're going to look at where you're at right now with your desired goal outcomes that you set at the beginning of the year. What worked? What didn't work? Do you need more time? Do you want to try a different strategy? Do you need more knowledge about how to create the outcomes you're looking for? If you had nothing to lose, what would you be willing to do? If you had unlimited money, what would you be willing to invest in to help you get where you wanted to go? I'm asking you these provoking questions to really get your mind getting out of, I know what the problem is, because obviously you don't, or you would already have all your goals achieved. You don't know. So what you think might be the problem may not be the problem. What else could it be? So take another at least half a page to full page to synthesize what you went over in your review, what you're noticing as far as all of your data, and write your conclusions below. So step 1 was all about, this is what happened. Step 2 is about, given what happened and the data that I have, looking at my habit tracker, looking at my weigh-ins, looking at my habits around food, how did I get progressively better? Okay. What things were not working at all? What things are partially working? What could I try that I haven't tried yet? What's that one thing that I'm not even looking at because I don't want to? That's what I want you synthesizing, and come up with some conclusions about what's possible for the new season. You can stop the podcast here and come back when you're ready. Okay, we're on step 3 now. This is the reset step. It has 2 parts. For part 1, You're going to think about the version of you moving forward who's learned from her experiences in the past season and reset her focus. What does she want to achieve? You can throw anything in the garbage that you want to and pick something new if you want. This is your life. There's no one way to do it. Some of the greatest inventors in the world were willing to scrap everything and start fresh. If that's what you think it's going to take, I want you to do that. If you think there's good stuff here to keep it. What do you want to add? What do you want to remove? Take into account weeks over the next 12 weeks that take you to the summer solstice, where you may be on vacation or other practical considerations. Okay. What 1 to 3 goal outcomes would you like to focus on creating in the following 12 weeks? So this is mostly about weight management. So your first goal should include that, of course. And you could just stop there with that one goal, or you could add 2 others. But these are outcomes. They should be measurable and require you to stay focused and consistent, but at the same time feel achievable and doable. So you don't want to set an outcome that's feels like it's impossible. You also don't want to make the outcome too easy, right? You want to challenge yourself in doable ways by naming 3 goal outcomes. So one goal outcome could be that you want to lose 5 pounds of fat. You use an in-body scale to determine that by the summer solstice. Goal outcome number 2 could be to maintain your skeletal muscle mass from what it is today. So you look on your skeletal muscle mass, you get on an in-body this week, you record what that is, and your goal is to maintain that skeletal muscle mass in pounds or exceed it. And maybe goal outcome number 3 is to stay consistent with the number of overeats and the percentage full you eat to that helps you create results consistently week after week. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to podcast episode 55 in terms of how I teach weight loss. I'm not going into that today. Okay. So those are just 3 examples of what you could do for your goal outcomes. Notice how all of those are measurable. You can track it and you'll know if you've achieved it for sure and by a certain date. Okay. So that's part 1. You can pause this here if you need extra time. Okay. Part 2 of step number 3, which is your seasonal reset, is to translate your goal outcomes that you just identified, the 1 to 3 goal outcomes, into goal actions. So goal actions are actions you're going to take or stop doing weekly and daily that directly create the goal outcome. Goal actions are not thinking in your head about what to do or not to do. They are action, active, and habit-based practices that you'll be doing on mostly a day-to-day basis or a week-to-week basis. So, for example, using the example of the goal outcome I gave you in the part 1 of step 3, to lose 5 pounds of fat over the next coming 12 weeks. Well, we know that you're going to have to eat or stop eating your meals when you are less than 80% full, ideally 70 to 75% full. But you know that sometimes you can do that, or sometimes you don't. Sometimes you take the time to really check in, and sometimes you don't. So a good goal action would be to take a look at how often you check in and you practice my 6 steps to feeling satisfied, eating less. And you're going to practice those 5 out of 7 days at dinner. On an ideal week, obviously if you're on vacation, maybe that's not a good one, right? But in general, 5 out of 7 days, you practice the 6 steps without, being interrupted or distracted by other people so that you can get really good at noticing when you're at 70, 75% full and you can feel satisfied and therefore eat in a caloric deficit without having to count calories or macros to do that. The better the better you get at that, the more likely it is that you will lose fat consistently over the next 12 weeks. Okay. So that's an example of how you make a goal outcome into a goal action. So the outcome is what you'll look at the summer solstice. Did I lose 5 pounds of fat? You'll get on the InBody scale and you'll see. The goal actions are what you're going to track on your planning or your habit tracker week to week. And you're going to look to fill in those bubbles 5 out of 7 days. You're going to print that 6 steps out and you're going to have it right there by the table. You're going to keep a copy in your purse. If you're eating out at work and you're going to be practicing at work at your desk, the 6 steps, uninterrupted, of course, not working at your computer, right? Things like that. So write all of those actions down that support that goal outcome that you identified. And this is where we're just using data and what we know about the theory of how weight loss works to lose fat. And maybe in some of this actions, you can also identify that you need to wait for hunger, physical hunger before eating. And that you want to do that like maybe 5 out of 7 days, where you just take the day as a whole. Did I eat every meal by waiting for physical hunger first before I chose to eat? If I can do that 5 out of 7 days or 6 out of 7 days, I also know that will help me to lose fat. Because if I'm eating when I'm not physically hungry, I'm overeating, and that's directly in the way of losing fat. Okay. So take your time with this. You're going to create goal actions for each one of your goal outcomes. Okay. You can pause the podcast here and come back when you're ready. Okay. Some helpful tips before we end. Just know that more goal actions aren't better, but they need to be effective at creating the outcome. Okay, a lot of times I see clients talking about, well, I want to lose 12 pounds. And the main way I'm going to do that is to drink my water and get 7 hours of sleep. No. I mean, does drinking water and getting enough sleep help you to lose weight? Yes, but it's not the primary way. So if you want to lose fat, you have to be talking about how you're triggering fat loss in the body, lipolysis. And to do that, you have to wait for physical hunger before you eat. And you need to stop before you're at 80% full. 80% full is associated with maintaining weight. So you need to be just south of that. I mean, look, can you do it counting calories? Yeah, but I think most of you listen to me because you're done with that bullshit. You don't want to play counting games to lose weight. You want to, rely on and be in deep partnership with your body, which will always be there for you. You don't need to ever look up a calorie if you use your body to do it. Okay. And that's why I call it integrative weight loss, because it integrates your planning part of your brain with your body. It's an integrative way of knowing what's needed to go where you want to go with your weight goals. Okay. Another tip, I don't recommend having more than 3 goal actions daily. So don't load yourself down with, I got to journal, I got to write in my planner, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do this. Like, yeah, it's okay if it's already a habit for you. But what I'm talking about is new habits. So like new things that are new for you, maybe practicing those 6 steps to be satisfied and eat a little bit less. If those are new to you, don't pile those on with 10 other things. You're going to overwhelm yourself. Okay. Another tip, your daily goal actions get done first before other things. Just as a general rule, if you can prioritize your daily goal actions, what you're doing is you're prioritizing the results that you want. So a lot of times, and this is just like the harsh reality, right? I'm gonna tell you the truth here. A lot of us give a lot of lip service to what we want to do with our goals, but we're unwilling to prioritize the time and the effort it takes in our actions to create those changes. This is never going to feel like a priority. You have to make it a priority. And how do you do that? You do it first before you do other things. So if you want to finally get results on the scale that you've never gotten, you're going to have to prioritize what gets you there in a way that you've never done. Next tip, define what time exactly your goal actions need to be completed by daily so that you can enjoy the dopamine hit of completion and create certainty in your brain about when these things will get done. The planner I'm creating, we're going to take planning your day, your tasks personally, your business tasks, and your self-care tasks. And we're going to ask you to really only prioritize 3 in each of those categories. And then right next to it is the calendar, hour by hour breakdown of your day. Your goal is to not just leave it on a list, but assign it a time. This is what I talked about back in the fall when I talked to you on that podcast about time, tasks, and overwhelm. And I gave you those 3 tools. This is how I want you using it. Give it a time to complete it by. So this is like binding yourself to the task. And if you don't get it done by a certain time, right, use your accountability partner. Just say, hey, if I don't get this done by 3:00, I go into my Slack channel and say this to my clients all the time. I will get my strength training done by 3 p.m. And if I don't, I will come in here and explain what happened. And you can bet your ass I do not want to be doing that. And I know that my word is my bond, right? It's like the part of me that has integrity. And so I won't not show up or not do what I said I was going to do. So use accountability to help you too. Okay. Final tip. The vast majority of my clients who lose all their weight do commit to writing a daily plan or at least food logging daily, assessing how their food went down that day before they make a new plan for a new day. And they also track the number of overeats that they have daily and then cumulatively track them throughout the week. So let's say your weigh-in day is Friday. So from the moment you get off that scale starts your 7 days before you weigh in. Your part of your, responsibility and the way I teach weight loss is to track how often you're overeating within your weigh-in week. This means writing it down and not fluffing it off or saying, I'll do it later. Before you go to bed each night, you should have a number in your head of how often you've overeaten so far that week. Why do I say this? No, it's not to be beat down on you. It's not to make you aware of something negative that's happened. We all lose weight while overeating. You need to be aware of how often you've overeaten so that you can be strategic with your day. Let's say you know you can overeat 5 times and still lose weight because of the work you've done listening to me and you've been tracking it, right? So let's say your weigh-in day is Friday, it's Wednesday, and you've already had all your overeats. Well, when you wake up on Wednesday, when you're tempted to overeat at lunch because they brought something yummy to the office, well, at least you'll make the decision knowing what it will do for your weight loss. Because if you overeat and you make it number 6 for the week, you pretty much know you're giving up any progress that you could make that week because of the experiments you've been running consistently and how you know your body responds to the frequency of your overeating. So at least give yourself a chance to be strategic with your overeats. Plan some, leave some for chance, and keep track. Okay. So again, the planner that I'm coming out with is going to have a spot for you to track all this. It's going to make it super easy. This is why I'm so excited to offer it to you starting in May. Again, join the email list by going to hbeardsley.com/subscribe, and you'll be the first to know when it's available. I hope this review of the winter season and your planning for the spring season has been helpful. The goal for this is for you to enter into spring re-energized, re-excited, and full of good ideas about what's possible. Okay. Visit me over on Instagram on the reel for this episode number 74, and let me know how you found seasonal planning. Okay. We'll keep the conversation going over there. You can find me at Thrive in Midlife. Okay. Talk to you soon. Stay focused, and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.